Creating and Using Jar Files by Karen Gilmer, Georgia College and State University. Hey, I'm Karen. In this video, I'll explain what a jar file is. I'll explain step by step how you would create a jar file and everything you need to know. After we've discussed this, I'll demonstrate everything by recording my screen and creating and using a jar file. A jar file is basically a zip file made specially for Java. It can run similar to an executable file, a .exe file that you've probably seen in Windows. Just double-click the jar file and it will run the specified Java programs. First, make sure you've created a Java program with a main method. This program is what we want to execute when we double-click on our jar file. You could either compile the Java program from within your IDE to create your .class file, or you could compile your Java program from the command line terminal to create your .class file. I'll demonstrate doing both. Use standard output system.out.println within your code when you want to run your program from the command line and have the output print within the terminal. Use JOption pane for output when you want to double-click on the jar file and have your output display in a dialog box. Next, you need to create a text file that contains the following line: main class : and then the file name of the class that holds our main method. Capitalization and punctuation is important. This text file is known as your manifest text file. Next, we'll need to open up the command prompt. In Windows, go to Start, Run, and enter CMD. Once in the command terminal, change your directory to the location where your files are saved. You do this using the cd command. Then compile your .java file to get your .class file. Lastly, we will create our jar file using the following command: the keyword jar to create, use, or modify a jar file. We use the keyword C to create a new Java archive or jar file, F to specify the file name for the jar file, M to include manifest information from your specified manifest file, the text file that you just created, and lastly, include the name of your Java program's .class files from when you compiled the program. So let's look at some demonstrations. So here we have a sample file named hello.java. Inside this file, we have a main method, and all we do is we use JOption pane to show a message dialog saying hello. JOption pane is chosen over the standard system.out.println because it actually shows a message dialog box. So if we double-click our jar file and we're not inside the IDE, we'll have a window pop up, whereas system.out.println only prints to the terminal. Right now, hello.java has only been saved and has not been compiled, so we do not have a hello.class file. You can either compile it using the green plus sign in your IDE, or you can compile it from the terminal, which is what I'm going to show you how to do. I'm going to copy the address of where everything is stored, and I'm going to go to my terminal, type in CMD. You might have to go under Run and then CMD. I'm going to change my directory to the location that my files are stored. Once my directory is changed, I'm going to say javac, which is Java compile, and then the name of my class, hello.java. No negative feedback, that's good. Go into here and you can see that it created the hello.class file. Now that we have our hello.class file compiled, we're going to create a new text file, and this is the manifest text file. So in here, all we have to say is main-class, capitalization is important, and we tell it where the .class file is of the main method. So hello.class is the file that has the main method. So we just say hello. I'm going to save it. You have to save it in the same location that everything else was saved, so I'm going to navigate to that here. Okay, save it in the same location, and I'm going to call mine manifest. It's good practice to call it manifest, my manifest, something like that. So now that I have my manifest file, we can start creating the jar file. So I'm going to use the command jar. C means create a new jar file. F means I'm going to specify the file name of that jar file. And M means I'm going to specify my manifest file. jar CFM. First, we're going to give it the name of the jar file, myjar.jar. Make sure you use the jar extension. Next, I'm going to include the manifest file, manifest.txt. And lastly, the hello.class file, not Java. Again, no negative feedback. So let's look in our folder. Here's my myjar file I created. Should double click it, and it says hello. So let's look at an example that's a little more complicated. Going to browse to my folder where everything's stored again. And here I've already created a couple sample files. Open this one and open this one. Alright. Here I created a class called today's date. Today's date, it imports a bunch of utilities that work with the date, and it has a constructor and it has a getDate method which returns the date as a string in a format that I specified up here. Now notice that today's date doesn't have any main methods in it. So here's the what's the date method. What's the date method? All it contains is your main method. It creates a today's date object. I called it now because it will get the current date and time. And we again use JOptionPane to show our results. And we get our results by saying now, my object, .getDate, which is the method that's going to return the date. So what I want to do is I want to wrap these together in a jar file so that when I double click the jar file, it calls the what's the date method and will give me the date by accessing the today's date method. So again, these have not been compiled. They could be compiled in your IDE or your terminal. To save time, I'm going to compile them right here in the terminal. So we can go into our file and see that the .class files have been created there and there. So now I need to work with my manifest file. You could create a new manifest file. I'm just going to update this one. The what's the date class is the one that holds our main method. See? So I'm going to update that. I'll just save it again. What's the date? And now I'll go back into my command prompt. Mine are stored in the same location, so I don't have to worry about changing directories again. Jar CFM. I'll name it mydate.jar. Use manifest.txt. And here I'm going to specify both what's the date.class, use a space, and then the today's date.class. This will wrap them together. No negative feedback. Okay, here's our jar file, my date. I'll double click it and it displays the current date. I hope you found this tutorial on jar files beneficial. Good luck.